$212. It's 6:12 in the morning, and you're standing in a kitchen that isn't yours yet, holding a gas station receipt folded into a bookmark, and on the counter, next to a chipped blue mug, your phone is showing a number that used to be 0. The fridge hums. Somewhere outside, a car with a bad muffler pulls out of the apartment complex, and you know without looking that it's Derek on his way to a job he hates in a truck he can't afford, and you feel something that isn't pride. It's closer to guilt for a crime you haven't committed yet. Now hold that $212 in your mind, because this is a story about what happens when the math starts working before anyone tells you it's allowed to. You are 22. The receipt says $41.60 for gas, and on the back of it, in pen, is a number, $150. That's what goes into the account every month, the day after payday, before you can talk yourself out of it. Nobody explains compounding to you like it matters. They explain it like a formula on a whiteboard, something you nod at and forget. What they don't tell you is that it feels like nothing. For a long time, it feels like exactly nothing. You check the account and it says $150, then $312, then $470, and it is the least interesting number you have ever looked at. Derek buys the truck that spring, $64,000, financed over 7 years. And the day he pulls up in it, chrome and clean and enormous, he is so happy that you feel the guilt again, sharper this time, because you know something he doesn't seem to know, or maybe just doesn't want to know, and you don't say it. He didn't do anything wrong. He just wanted to feel, for one Saturday, like the last 4 years of a warehouse shift had bought him something with a shine on it. You ride in the truck. You mean it when you tell him it's nice. You are 25. The number on the phone is $16,240, and you know this because you've started checking it the way other people check the weather. Not because it changes the plan, but because it's a small ritual, a habit worn smooth. At a cousin's wedding, an uncle asks what you're doing with your money, and you say, "Not much, just kind of putting some away." And he laughs, not unkindly, and says something about how a man's got to live a little. You don't argue. You eat the chicken. You dance with your cousin's daughter, who is 4, and who does not care about any of this, and for one song, neither do you. Nobody tells you that the strange part isn't earning more. It's that the conversations start changing shape before the number gets big enough to explain why. You are 29, $83,760, and you've raised the monthly amount to $300, a decision you made on a Tuesday with no ceremony, sitting on the edge of a bed that isn't the one from the apartment anymore. Derek's truck note is $890 a month, and he mentions it once, at a barbecue, in the tone people use for weather. Bad, but not worth dwelling on. His girlfriend at the time, Priya, is telling a story about a coin, some small blockchain thing a co-worker put her onto, and how it 10x'd in 6 weeks. And everyone at the table leans in the way people lean in for a good ghost story. You lean in too. You don't say what's in your account. You have started, without deciding to, keeping that number the way some people keep a diagnosis. Not a secret exactly, just something you don't bring up unless asked, and you make sure you're never asked. You are 33, $208,400. You cross $100,000 somewhere in the months before on a Thursday, and you remember exactly where you were, in a laundromat, folding a towel, half watching the machine spin, and you wait for the feeling the number is supposed to bring. It doesn't come. There's no music. There's a towel, still slightly damp at the seams, and a woman 2 machines down arguing quietly on the phone about a late rent payment, and you feel, more than anything, like an intruder in your own milestone. You fold the towel, you go home. Money doesn't remove fear. It just changes its address. This is the part they leave out of the documentaries, the part where getting the number doesn't cure the thing that made you chase it. You still check prices twice. You still flinch at a surprise expense that your account could absorb without noticing. You are 39, $421,900. Derek gets laid off in March, the warehouse cutting a third of its floor staff, and he calls you, not to ask for anything, just to talk. He says, though you both know that's not quite true. And somewhere in the call he mentions, almost as an aside, that he's 3 payments behind on the truck. You don't offer the money. You want to, and you also don't. And the not offering has less to do with the amount and more to do with a fear you can't name. That the moment you hand it over, you stop being the friend who understands and become the friend who fixes, and something between you closes like a door clicking shut in another room. You send him a job posting instead. He thanks you. It's not enough, and you both know it, and you carry that for longer than the phone call lasted. Priya's coin, it turns out, did something else entirely a year after the barbecue. Fell to almost nothing, then to nothing. And she doesn't bring it up anymore, and neither does anyone else. out of the same instinct that keeps you from bringing up your own number. Everyone at that table, it turns out, was carrying a private ledger nobody read aloud. You are 47, $677,300. You've started noticing that certain rooms go quiet when money comes up near you, not because anyone suspects, but because you've become fluent in a kind of deflection you didn't used to need. The shrug, the we're doing okay, the changing of the subject to someone else's kid, someone else's vacation. You have become someone who can no longer be fully understood by the people who knew you first. And the strange cruelty of it is that nothing about you changed except a number in an account you rarely look at anymore, because looking at it stopped being a ritual and became, at some point you can't identify, a kind of weight. There was no day. There were just two different answers to the same tiny question, asked once a month for 25 years. Spend it or don't. And one of you kept answering the same way long after it stopped being interesting, and the other kept answering the way that felt like being alive. You are 55. The number now has a comma in a place that still looks unfamiliar when you glance at it, and you've stopped telling people a figure at all, giving instead a vague, practiced, "We're fine," the same sentence 100 people at your income use to end a conversation before it turns into something uncomfortable. Derek retires that year, not from money, but from a bad knee and a settlement, and he calls to tell you, and there's no bitterness in his voice, and somehow that's harder to sit with than if there had been. He asks if you remember the truck. You say, of course. He laughs and says he still has the title in a drawer somewhere, paid off eventually, years late, worth less than half what he owed on it the day he drove it home smiling. Neither of you says anything about the other number, the one that was never mentioned, the one sitting quietly in an account 3 states away. You are 61. $1,004,000 arrives on a Wednesday, in a hotel room in a city you're visiting for a funeral, not a celebration. An old coworker, someone from the warehouse years, someone you'd lost touch with the way you lose touch with anyone, once your calendar fills up with other people's slowness. You check the account out of habit in the 15 minutes before you have to put on a dark suit, and there it is. 7 figures, the number every article and every relative and every version of younger you imagined would feel like a door swinging open into something bright. Instead, there's a made bed you didn't sleep well in, a suit that needs steaming, and a feeling that never quite arrives, the way a package sometimes just doesn't come, and you stop waiting for it and go get dressed. The slowness was the price. Nobody warns you that the cost of the number isn't paid in a single moment, dramatic and countable. It's paid in installments, in small absences, in the version of you that would have laughed harder at the barbecue, argued more at the wedding, said yes faster to the thing that cost money and meant something. You didn't lose those people. You just became someone whose sentences they had to translate a little. And translation, done enough times, starts to feel like distance, even when nobody moves. $212. It's 6:12 in the morning again, decades later, in a kitchen with better light and a mug that isn't chipped anymore. And on the counter is the same folded gas receipt, kept all this time in a drawer for no reason you could ever explain to anyone who asked. The ink faded past reading. You don't need to read it. You know what it says. The number was never the point, and the point was never a number. It was a Tuesday, and a decision small enough to make twice without noticing, made again and again until it became a life you can't quite recognize as a series of choices anymore, only as the weather you've always lived in. There was no finish line. There was just a receipt and a habit, and the quiet arithmetic of everyone you ever loved answering the same question differently, 1 month at a time, for the rest of their lives.